oh my God, look at all these people copying. I did that first. Like, I took the picture that way.
I'd be offended if they try to copy me and they didn't do it really well. I'm such a bee for saying that. But you know what I mean?
Oh, after this, I have something to ask you.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the BFF podcast, the Best Foot Forward podcast. I'm Ann Duskus, and here with me is my co-host.
It's me, Vic, from Cestlavic, and we're both based out of San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Welcome back. What do we want to talk about today?
I really want to talk about people asking us if they can have our designs.
Oh, my God. Yeah. Okay, but you put it in a really nice way.
I did, didn't I?
That's like the ugly side of it is like, can we copy your work? Or people that don't even ask and they like just replicate your work.
Yeah.
But like it's surprising to me that you would get people wanting to replicate your work because it's a lot harder. Do you find that?
I actually don't currently have anybody that copies my work.
Yeah.
I know, and I say that because I feel like this is probably more of a topic that's more of a frequent topic for you than it is for me, because if I'm being really honest, I don't think I've had anybody who have reached out to me in the past to ask me if they can have my designs without paying me. Mm-hmm. And I also have not seen anybody try to recreate one of my designs.
Yeah. The barrier of entry is so much higher.
It is.
Right? Because you have to know how to make the shoe first, and then you have to replicate it. But do they ever ask you for like your template?
They have, actually. Okay. So I've had people reach out to me asking. Actually, yeah, I've only had people so far reach out to me asking me if I'm selling, my patterns.
Right.
And the answer to that has always been, unfortunately, I can't, because I feel like that is the part of my intellectual property that I hold dear, because, yes, I can sell it. Mm-hmm. But it's funny, I created those patterns in a way that makes sense to me.
Right.
So you can't just buy my patterns and expect to know how to use them. You actually, it doesn't come with instruction.
Yeah.
And so even if you have my patterns, it would take a seasoned shoemaker like my peers to figure it out how to properly use it.
Right.
And so I think for that reason, like, it doesn't make sense for me to. And also, a lot of my designs are exclusive for my clients. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I don't consider selling them or sharing them.
Right.
Because
I think on like a greater level, there's like, okay, you get a lot of people that say like, oh, Nike copied this from this designer, or like this person did it first and then Nike did something very similar to it. How do you feel about that?
I'm actually okay with it. And I think maybe it's just a comfort of knowing that I'm not really afraid of other people taking my designs. And I think you and I sort of like, we think the ultimate flex is to create a design that nobody else can copy. But like, what does that even mean? Because like anything that you put out there for the world to see can and will be copied. Mm-hmm. To what extent is the question. Yeah. And I think you and I are always like, oh, we love to see somebody try replicating our designs. Like, specifically, like your Looney Tunes ones. Oh, I would die to see somebody try to replicate.
Have you ever seen my Sour Patch Kids that have been replicated? So I was one of the. I'm pretty sure, and this is like, of course, every artist can be like, I was the first one to do it. Yeah. But like, I genuinely I really like Sour Patch Kids and like the design and the idea of them. So I put them on Air Force Ones, and that's like one of my first Instagram post that kind of went viral. And there are YouTube videos out there of people doing it. There are people who have replicated it exactly. And the funny thing is, on the Insta, so I think you might be able to relate to this, is like we put things into our shoes that are kind of for ourselves.
Yeah.
There's a little piece of us that's in the custom design. So on the inside of my actual original Air Force One shoes, I put a Sour Patch Kid beating up a gummy bear. And that was like my specific like little cute thing that I did. And the person who replicated that exactly. So like you can't even tell me that you weren't looking at my design, because that's not an aspect that's on a Sour Patch Kid packaging. You know, like two people can come up simultaneously with the same idea, but like when you do that, it's like
the exact thing in the exact position. Like,
do you take, when somebody copies your work or like does something very similar to you, do you feel like that's a compliment? You know how people say like, if someone copies you is because they love what you're doing.
Right. So, two things. One, again, I haven't had anybody copy me, so I can't even say that. Like, oh, can I actually decide if it's a compliment or not? But then if somebody were to copy me, I mean, I think I would take it as a compliment. But then on the same token, I would be offended if they tried to copy me and they didn't do it really well. I'm such a bee for saying that. But you know what I mean? It's like there is a level of confidence I have with my work. And I'm sorry if this sounds a little arrogant, but it's like my standards are really high. And this is self-imposed standards, so like it can not be very high for somebody else, but like to me, it's very high. And so if I'm making, for example, like if I'm making a paracord strap, it needs to look like a paracord strap. It needs to have an even tension. It needs to look, even like the left side to the right side. Like it needs to look like it's professionally made versus like somebody made this at home. And so I feel like, yes, I would love to see somebody try. I think it would be, and again, it's like if one of my students were to try to copy what I've done, like I would encourage them, but it's like,
because you literally have master classes where you will teach a certain technique, or like you'll do a certain shoe. Right. And then, but I would encourage them to like experiment, figure it out, because that's what I do. And that's what I get paid to do. Yeah. And so I think for the most part, it would just be kind of entertaining, to see somebody try to copy. It always is. And if they do a worse job, I don't know. For me, if I was looking at, like, if you told me, like, oh, look, Vicky, somebody replicated my work and did this, I'd be like, yeah, that's not done half as well as you do it. I would feel like, yeah, try to get to Ann's level. You're not so there yet. But, like, I think it's interesting what you said is like, try, even if you're trying to replicate somebody's work, put your own spin to it, right? I know that, for example, if you are just starting out drawing, it's really nice to have a reference image. And I struggled with this for the longest time. I don't know how to do original work. Like, some people can just draw. They can draw a person and it looks like a person and it just came from their minds, I can't do that, but I can reference work and kind of replicate it really easily, and that's a good way to start. So if you're like starting to learn how to make sneakers, you can make the same silhouette, you can do something, whatever, change it up. Don't make the same thing twice. It already exists. Put your own spin to it. A lot of people have done like my ice cream shoes, and in all honesty, the ice creams look kind of like the donuts, right? Drip, sprinkles, whatever, frosting.
Yeah.
And that has been done so many times. But like, what is going to make you stand out is if you aren't doing that same design over and over and over again, and you're not changing anything. You're not adding to it. There's no point if you're not adding to it.
Yeah.
You can practice with it, sure. But if you're putting out representative work, don't put it out as your own. I have a bone to pick with that.
Yeah, and I think you make a really good point, though. I like what you said about, like, just copy me, but make it better.
Yes. And we love to see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think in this, I feel like this is one of the reasons why, like, I'm really obsessed with the Japanese culture is they're one, just like a very original like design culture, but then also there are a lot of things that they've made better, you know, from seeing other people's version of it.
Right.
And if you were to tell me like, oh wait, but they weren't the one that did this to begin with, you know, but I'm just like, it doesn't matter, you know, like, did they make it better? And in the end it is, then like what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
And so I actually would love to see, again, like, take my designs, but like, again, put your own spin on it.
Do it better.
Yeah, you know, and just do it differently.
Yeah.
You know, take that concept and like put a spin on it.
And at the end of the day, like, that's something I have to learn too, is like, don't get too attached to your one design, because two things. There's like a saying in like science, it's like, not the person who made the discovery, but the person who convinced the world.
Yep.
So do a good
yes.
job, you know, like, be the best that you possibly can in doing that thing if it's really something that you like. And then I forget my second point, so you can keep talking. It'll come back to me.
Yeah, I remember this one time I had this person, like, I think like it was during like early pandemic days, I did this like all like hook and loop Velcro shoe.
Yes.
With all of these like
one's
Velcro patches.
Epic. Yes.
And basically like you get the shoe and then you also get like 168 pattern pieces.
Wait, that shoe is like, did that come out before Nike's One of One came out?
Yes.
Nike's shoe?
But then this is, okay, so
I know,
I was
I'm not
gonna say, right?
Yeah.
So then I had somebody like DMs me at some point after they saw Nike's version of it, who, interestingly enough, I happen to know the person that designed like that shoe.
Yeah.
And he's this super talented person, you know?
that's awesome.
So like, and so like this person like, you know, DMs me is like, of that, you know, that Velcro Nike shoe that was released.
So that shoe is basically like, all the base shoe itself is one part of the Velcro, and then you have patches on top with like a colorway that you can attach the using Velcro to literally like color block your own shoe the way that you want.
Exactly.
Like the Nike Air Force One.
I think it was Air Force One. Yep. And then, so when this like one of my followers DMs me a photo of that, and then all he said was, "We all know who did it first," which was like, again, so nice of him to say that. But then also I'm like, who knows if I did it first? Honestly, I bet you there is somebody else before me that did something similar to what I've done.
Right.
But then mine just so happened to be the first one they've seen before Nike released their own.
Yeah.
So I can even bet you that Nike didn't see my stuff and then released it. You know, it's like, I never sort of like, if I see something after I've created something that looks similar to mine, like, I don't ever think that they copy me. Only because, again, just from working as a professional designer, like the nature of design, I hate to say this, like, because it sounds like so effed up, but like the nature of design is like people copying other people. But just like, how do you copy a concept? It could be a concept that I've seen in apparel that I'm taking into footwear, or vice versa, right? So it's never really... So a concept can be translated into so many different things. Yeah. And so it just so happened the one that I translated into is a pair of sneakers. Right. And so I don't ever think that I'm the first person to come up with that idea, because like there's so many people who came before me.
That's true.
And so this is just my iteration of this concept.
It's kind of like the debate between which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Exactly.
Right. And with corporations, like a giant like Nike, for example, and I'm sure you can attest to this, is the design team would probably have this concept months, years in advance. Yeah. That's ongoing. So two people can conceptualize the same idea, but it takes a really long time. And then on the flip side of that is corporations do have the power to produce a lot quicker than we do. So if they do get an idea, let's say they did get inspired by a picture that's online, they can put that into production a lot quicker too. So it's like two sides, you know, and you can argue it over and over and over again. But that brings me to the point that I need to get back to, which I remembered, is like, are you the shepherd or are you the sheep? Right? So if you're constantly somebody who can come up with new ideas, or you have the power to make that idea your brand, you shouldn't be afraid of copycats. right?
100%.
There are so many people in this world. There's so many people in our industry. That's going to happen inevitably. But if you're constantly reinventing or like, you know, innovating and creating new things, then who cares?
Yeah.
Right? Like you can't be, don't stay awake at night thinking about these people, although they bother us. But it doesn't matter because you're already, by the time that they've copied you, you're on your next project. You're doing your own thing. Right?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter. Like you're over it, that you've finished that shoe already and you've posted it. It's like out of mind, you know?
Yeah.
So you just move on.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's a really interesting debate. So like for you, I know, you talked about your ice cream. You talked about, are there any project that like you've seen or does anybody ever come to you? I know you asked me in the beginning, to ask you if they can have your design or to get your blessing. Like, I want to copy this. Like, are you okay with this? Like, what's that like?
Oh gosh. Yes, they come into, like, there are people that message me and I don't even know if it's like a polite thing to do. Like, hey, so can weird. I copy you? It's right. It's a weird feeling. Like, what am I supposed to say to you? No, you can't do it. And I know customizers out there who will literally like protect their intellectual property and they'll go on pages and like literally be like, don't copy my design. You can't copy. It's like copyrighted or trademarked, whatever they want to say about it. I just think it's a losing battle, so I don't really engage. But I have gone on to like other people's profiles and said, hey, if you're inspired by my work, I think going forward, it's etiquette for you to credit the artist that you're stealing work from. Not that, you know, it really matters to me. At the end of the day, I won't remember you, but like, if you continue to do this to my peers and people that I like, I would hope that you get this message. And sometimes the people like the Sour Patch Kid, the guy who like copied exactly, he turned out to be like an 18-year-old kid, was like really apologetic about it when I confronted him and I said, hey, like, I think you copied, you know, my work and here's why. And it would be nice for you to credit your artist if you're inspired. And he's just like, oh, I didn't know, like, they don't know about this, right? And again, it's like when you get DMs from your followers saying like, oh, I know where this came from, or like, how can this person do this? It's endearing because we know people have our back. And we know that people who are watching remember our designs, and that feels so good.
Yeah, for sure. And then this reminds me of an incident where, again, like we talk about how small this community is. And especially like with shoemaking, at least like my side of the industry, I feel like we know every customizer in the industry. And we all have a lot of respect for each other. Yeah. And I remember there was this incident where two pretty big names in the industry simultaneously by one day released almost the same exact thing. And they're friends. Yeah. But then literally the person that like posted something, you know, after, because I'm sure they saw, they're like, oh crap, I was about to release this. Now people are going to think I copy this person. But like any customizer who makes shoes from scratch knows you can't literally copy somebody's work in one day.
You can't make it in a day.
Possible. Yeah. And so that person that posted after the first person was like, coincidence, like my buddy over here also did one, you know, and they call it out, you know?
I love that.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, oh, great minds, right? You know? And it's, again, because they respect each other and they have no beef with that, because again, like design is such a tricky thing because it's like, it can be so coincidental, you know? Like our world is this big, you know?
So and big, so like, many people out there.
Right. And then so it's like how there can be coincidence when it comes to designing something very similar, you know, when it comes to color choices. But I mean, the Sour Patch Kid and the gummy bear thing is just like a straight up copy because that's just like so unique. Yeah. But again, like, you know, I don't really take those things personally because again, I just have seen so much, and I have seen like everybody taking everybody else's ideas and making it their own. Yeah. So
it's kind of funny. So, I feel like the artists themselves feel a sense of like self-consciousness when they do this. And I've recently felt this because one of the shoes that we're actually both working on has a wood grain and a marble pattern.
Oh, yeah.
And we know that one of our dear friends who is a female customizer, marble is like her trademark. Right? And
well, it's not her trademark, but it's like her jam.
But like, it's her
everybody
jam.
knows her for doing that, which is great. Like, she does a great job.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I'm like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that if it's like too much her style and it's not my style. And for a quick second, I was like, I think I brought it up to you. I was like, Ann, now I'm going to be like that person that did this. And I also have another friend who does wood grain, right? And it's like, but it's completely different if you do a different take on it. If you're inspired by a different thing, you just have to make it your own and own up to it. Because I think there are a lot of things, like I don't own ice cream.
Yeah.
I can't sit here and be like any ice cream custom. Like Nike released a dunk, I think, with like drippy.
Yep.
It's really ugly, but drippy pink, and then like the cone pattern and whatnot. And it's like, I'm not gonna go and own that because, of course, before I even launched at nearly the same time that I launched mine, the chunky dunks were out too, and those are ice cream. And like, I don't own ice cream, right? I own the way that I did it, like that I executed it. So if you're doing it exactly the same way, then obviously I feel that personally. But I think, there are a lot of things that you can get inspired by, and it's just general. Like, you can't say, like, oh, if you did, I don't know, a hamburger pattern or something, that everybody else who does a hamburger after you is copying you. Like, that's such a stupid way to live.
Yeah. And also, I think that's the reason why Pinterest exists. Like, if you look at Pinterest, basically is a tool that, like, you can basically pull inspiration of anything you're into.
Yeah.
And how you might want to copy this because you really like this. And that's why, like, we all have a folder on Pinterest where like, I want my house to look like this. It's aspirational, you know? But like, you may not get to that final product, but you might take this corner of this like house and you want it to look like that. I might take that design element I really like from this particular thing.
Yeah.
And then find a way to incorporate that into my design. So I think, again, we just live in a world that has so much potential for people to say you're copying someone else when maybe we just need to look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Wait, before we like round up with like such a good message, I do have beef with people who like blatantly copy the stuff. And I think I've shown you before. And like, man, when you don't credit and you take that design as your own, and like, there's more than one instance when people have literally taken my design, changed up a single color, but like everything's exactly the same placement,
which is so
outlining, and then they like sometimes they get more views than I have.
Yeah,
they have more followers than I have, and they like literally will adopt that design as their own, slap their names on it, and sell it, and like it just drives me freaking insane. And at the end of the day, you gotta let that go. Yeah. But like those people do exist out there. Those are like the trolls of the world. And people follow them not knowing, right? Because obviously like, oh yeah, they're so amazing at their design. But all they're going to be doing is copying another person's design. They're gonna be on the lookout for somebody else's stuff. So you can't be worried too much about it. But there are trolls out there that like I roll my eyes at, and they're always the ones that show up in your lives or like liking your posts. Like, come on, guys, like
don't make
it obvious.
Like,
no, I'm like, no, you should. What did Cardi B say in her like acceptance speech? Like, I gotta thank my haters because they're the ones replaying my video and giving me the views. You know, so at the end of the day, it's a sweet balance between the people out there who are just followers and people who are truly creating and being artists.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just had to get that out there.
You were waiting for your moment. I love it. Is there, what else can we talk about when it comes to like people copying our work?
Do you find that it's different? It's different when like you're teaching something and people are copying it, or like, because your approach is also not like, we're not selling products anymore. Like, we're not selling fully made shoes anymore. A lot of times it's like we're sharing. Do you find that you pivoted a little bit from initially maybe wanting to create shoes for client, but then now you're like more open to sharing skills and like you're encouraging people to pick this up or like learn how to do it, because that's part of your business.
Yeah, it is. But I feel like when it comes to like educating somebody how to make shoes, I feel like essentially like we're creating the same thing together as a group, so it's not really like copying a design. We're like really we're really just using this design to like learn a new skill set. So I don't really see it that way. I'm trying to think if there are anybody out there, you know, where what I'm doing right now can be viewed as like, oh, I've copied this other person's like business model or whatnot, you know? Because I think it's not like copycat isn't necessarily exclusive to like a product, right? It could be a service. It could be whatever it is.
It could be the way that you brand your thing. There's a lot of marketing things, the way you take your pictures. It's so funny.
Sure.
So I have like one of the learning curves that we had to go through in this Instagram social media journey was like learning how to do photography. And you guys probably know because I always tag him, but like my partner helps me with taking photos. And there's this like one time where he put a shoe into another shoe and like stacked them on top. And then we started seeing people taking pictures like that with their shoes. And you know, of course, I didn't feel it because I wasn't the one that set up that photo that way. But he was like, oh my God, look at all these people copying. I did that first. Like, I took the picture that way, you know? And it's like little things like that. And I'm like, if you look at it from a different perspective, I kind of saw it as like, oh, they thought it was cool, and so they did it. But they would never credit the photographer almost, you know? It would be like, oh, if I was inspired by an artist, sometimes people would say, you know, inspired by this. But a lot of times it's like subtle things that you don't notice that we'll take inspiration from and we'll use it without saying anything. And that, I think that's normal. That's like natural to do too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man. I mean, to that point, I actually have a folder full of photography inspirations. Right? Like a lot of them from like Keth, a lot of them from like you know, just like brands that I admire, and I like the way they take their photography with shoes. And I just have like, I always reference it when I go take my photography, like product shots. But I think it's like, that's when we run into the issue of like, okay, I pulled it from this website, but I have no idea who the photographer is.
A lot of times you can't. And
right. And then I think that sort of happened to you when like somebody copied your design and used it as their own, like come to find out, right? Like
they didn't know where it came from.
Right. It's been like reshared so many times. They no longer know where the original creator came from.
Okay, so then I have this question for you. It's like I have been conditioned to put a watermark on my photos and my videos now. And I think it is, for me personally, I think it's great to put watermark because then you'll be able to trace the photos. And even when people repost, a lot of times they're not going to go through the efforts of removing your watermark before they, you know, do it. And I don't think that like a crazy watermark is necessary. I think just a little, whether it's your logo or your name or your handle, is enough to like deter those people. But it has really been effective for me because nowadays if I see something on the internet from before, it will have no name, it will have nothing on it. But if it's like more recent works, then it's always like, it always has Cestlavic in it. And I mean, you have to figure out a way that is aesthetically good for you.
Yeah.
But do you watermark your photos?
I do not. There's only one time that I did, but that I didn't do it afterwards. The only time that I did was when I not released, but like shared the photos of the ambush stunks that I did with the chains. And I don't know why, like, I was like, oh, maybe I'll watermark this one. But
I'm glad you did.
It's not a consistent thing that I do, honestly. And I guess, like, I haven't had a reason to have to do that. And maybe that lesson is coming. I don't know. But
do it.
Maybe
I highly encourage it.
A time where I feel like compelled to do so, but I haven't had any like compelling reasons to why I would. But yeah, I mean, sometimes like I do, like to your point earlier, it's like it does, sometimes I feel like that extra thing like changes the aesthetic of the image that I'm trying to portray, and I don't like that, so I'd rather not put it on there. But then what is the downside of not putting it on there? So I guess like you'll have to decide for yourself.
And this actually reminds me, remember that we joined this conference call with the lawyer, and they were basically saying, you know, this is like when the Nike lawsuits came up and stuff like that. And the lawyer said, if somebody goes to remove your watermark, they are essentially breaking the law.
Yeah.
So you can like post, you can repost somebody else's thing, whatever. That's like less severe than if somebody goes and actually like messes with it.
Yep.
Right? Messes with a photo of yours or whatever, removes a watermark. It's actually like something that you can get them in trouble for, let's say, more than normal. So I would say that's like another reason for why it's good to protect your intellectual property, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, copycats are always going to be out there. There's not really anything that you can do to prevent it. And I think we share ideas, and again, Pinterest exists as a thing. People get inspired by the same thing. Just do something that you've never seen before. Do something in your own way. I think that's the ultimate like take home message.
Yeah, and I think to that though, like we can always try to do things that we've never done before, but chances are somebody has done it before. So, you know, like ignorance is kind of bliss, you know, like to some extent in this case, because I know you and I both do like extensive research when we're tasked with creating something custom for a client. You know, obviously the hopes is that we can provide them that something that they've never seen before or no one else owns. But again, like I said, so many people have come before us and they've done so many things that we probably are attempting to do right now. Yeah. And so, you know, all we can do is do our best, you know, and trying to come up with original designs of our own. And don't be so hard on yourself when you accidentally, you know, matches up with somebody else.
Yeah, just be cool about it. I like what you said about the two guys, and they just, you know, gave each other a shout out because they're like, oh, great minds think alike. And
exactly.
That's totally okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's gonna be there. It's part of the journey. You're either gonna get somebody really cool, like within your community doing it, or a big company, or like there have been, you know, factories in China who are literally taking people's custom work and then mass producing it, and you'll see them use the exact same photos and like all of this stuff, and then it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh my gosh, can I say something about that? So I have a couple of my peers, and they're amazing sneaker artists, and they have had their designs stolen, and their designs are so distinctively theirs.
Yeah.
That they've had it stolen. Everybody knows where it came from because they're very popular in our industry. Yeah. And every time their design gets copied, they're like, ha, look what they did. And then even one of my friends was like, I actually low-key wants to get a pair just to see what the quality is like. Just to see, yeah. You know? And so it's like learning how to like laugh about it and knowing that like you're the shepherd, they're the sheep. You know, they can keep copying you, but you're the person that's going to keep coming up with the original design. So don't be afraid of somebody copying you. Yeah. Yeah. So I love like, that.
And I think at the end of the day, it's the somebody could copy your shoe, Anne, but I am so confident in the level of attention to detail you put in that's not going to be replicatable. And I've seen a lot of our friends now are getting shoes produced instead of making it themselves a lot of times, painting it themselves. And when we get that quality back, and one of the things I like am very fascinated with about is like getting your peers' shoes in your hand and actually being able to examine it and seeing the fine details. Like Anne will say, we got to do an episode on like things we do that nobody else knows we do. I've watched her sit for hours, like taking off little bits of glue, making sure that the midsole is pristine, and like making sure everything goes out looking as if it's like fresh out of, you know, like it's made to such a pristine level that's not what you get when you have a lot of copycat work or like people that are taking your designs and like mass producing it. It's a completely different level. So I think it's important for you to always put out your best quality, because that's the thing that's really hard to replicate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so kind. I also do want to say one more thing and point this out, because, and this is a really important message to, and hopefully like we can remind ourselves of this too.
After this, I have something to ask you.
Okay. So many things. As an artist though, like don't ever allow the thought of somebody copying your design to where it cripples you from even putting your work out there. Mm-hmm. Because what good is your best work if nobody sees it?
Oh, I love that. Yes.
So, like, I actually know somebody that refuses to share their work with the public because they're afraid of their designs being stolen.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that is so sad because it's such great work. Like, I've seen the work and I'm like, don't be afraid. Mm-hmm. Like, you have the abilities and the skill sets and the intellect to create more work like this.
Yeah.
If you don't even share this to begin with, nobody's going to know who you are.
Exactly.
And so this is the prime example of somebody being crippled by the thought of being copied.
Mm-hmm. Own the fact that you can come up with ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And have the confidence. And I think it's get somebody who is like close to you that will tell you that too. I think that's very important. Because a lot of times as artists, we doubt ourselves and like our capabilities. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like speaking on that front, how do you feel about people that use like luxury brand logos? Because it happens in both of our worlds. For me, it's like stenciling. Like, how do I make an LV pattern monogram on my shoes? For you, it's like literally either one, taking apart a bag to do it, or two, like getting, I guess they're fakes, right? Like leathers that have, like real leather.
People that I know use real, authentic,
right,
like monogram products.
Yeah, and then so it's like a sheet of leather that they can purchase?
No. They buy the bag.
They take apart the bag.
Right.
Okay.
Or they buy the pants with a monogram.
Sure.
Right.
Whatever it is, if it's like Dior, if it's LV, whatever. How do you feel about that?
I don't feel anything about that. Mm-hmm. It's not something that I would do. But obviously it's like to each his own. There's a huge market, clientele-wise, that would love to buy stuff like that.
Yep.
That's customized with like a designer's monogram.
Yeah. I get a lot of requests for it. I think, a lot of customers look at, can you do this LV print in this color and that color, da-da-da. Yeah.
Yeah. And if somebody, I don't have people come to me requesting that because they know I don't do that.
Good.
And so, but if somebody were to come to me and say, hey, Ann, can you do this with this? I'm like, I can't, but I know somebody who would be happy to do it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
I think I feel the same way where it's like, I wouldn't personally do it, and I know a lot of people who are also friends that will do it, and like, no shame on you, there's a market for it, so there's a place for artists that do that, but personally, like, I don't know, I wouldn't do it because I don't see that's where I would shine.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but so.
Oh my gosh, that's such a good episode. I love that. I love hearing how you feel about it and all the...
it's like the good, the bad, the ugly.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It's daily. I'll come in and be like, Ann, look at this.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
See you next time.
Catch ya later.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh my god, I went to red.
It's like flashing.
Amazing.
Like, shut up, girls, shut up.
Okay, that's good. Okay.